Hello and welcome to Moving Iron Podcast. This edition of the Moving Iron Podcast is brought to you by these great sponsors. Axon started out of a passion for keeping agriculture moving. Imagine having 100 years of tire and wheel knowledge in your back pocket the next time you sell a piece of ag equipment. To find more or become an Axon dealer, please visit axontire.com. This podcast is also brought to you by Valley Transportation. Valley Transportation has been hauling ag and construction equipment across the country for the past 33 years. Call Parker at 800-657-4910 or go to valleytransinc.com for all your trucking needs. At Valley Transportation, our goal is to help you reach yours. This podcast is also brought to you by Ag Direct. No matter how you buy your ag equipment, from a dealer, auction, or a private party, Ag Direct can help you finance it. You can even apply online at agdirect.com. Learn more about your financing options at agdirect.com.
Hey, what's rule number one? What's rule number one?
Party.
No, not party. No, it's not party.
Moving iron in the 21st century. Hard-working people working hard for you and me. Moving iron time and time again. Through the years you'll find us here. Moving Iron.
Hello and welcome to Moving Iron Podcast number 255. This edition of the Moving Iron Podcast is brought to you by Axon Tire, helping dealers move more iron for the past 100 years. For more information, go to axontire.com. Aaron,
Yes, sir?
Do you like things that are sharp?
No, absolutely not. I'm only allowed to have spoons.
I'm the same way.
Right.
But if you were interested in something sharp,
If
would you
I
like it for free?
if I was allowed to, yes, I would love a really sweet pocket knife.
If it was free, would you like it even more?
Hell yes.
Well, if you like that, go to marketing at axontire.com. They'll send you a free Alliance branded pocket knife that you can, whatever you sheep farmers do with knives.
And your choice of R1, R1W,
Right.
R2, R3, or R4.
R4.
Just
yep.
kidding. They're all the same knife.
They're all the same knife. Or you could do it in metrics. They could be metric sizes at the same time.
Right.
So instead of like 14.9 whatever, you're going to go with like 520.
I got like a 320, 85, 92.
Right. Right. How long is that blade?
92-inch
How long is that blade? It's, I don't know. It's
about yay?
7 centimeters? I don't know. 7?
It's oh, okay.
So if you're interested in that pocket knife, go to marketing at axontire.com. Give them your details. Tell them Moving Iron Podcast sent you. You need a free pocket knife sent to you for free, including shipping. So
Free.
That's awesome. Outstanding. All right. If you like that, I'm going to go ahead and hit this button real quick, though.
Perfect.
Right on. Valley Transportation has been hauling ag and construction equipment across the country for the past 33 years. Call Parker at 800-657-4910 or go to valleytransinc.com for all your trucking needs. At Valley Transportation, our goal is to help you reach yours. Right on. No matter how you buy your ag equipment, if you buy it at a dealer, an auction, or a private party, Ag Direct can help you finance it. You can even apply online at agdirect.com. Learn more about your financing options at agdirect.com. Aaron, how you been, bud?
I'm fantastical.
It is nice.
Yeah.
It is nice. It's a nice cold March day. We got some snow on the ground.
We got our classic March snow.
We did.
Missing a couple feet, but we did get some March snow.
I'm afraid that's going to come, though. I'm afraid we're going to get that 25 inches of whatever.
I'm waiting with bated breath.
Bated breath. That's exactly right. So, and then we got a the whole snowmageddon thing.
Yeah.
Fight people for toilet paper and all that
Yes.
stuff. It's a whole thing.
Let's do it.
It's a whole thing. So this week we have a. I would classify this as a non-traditional guest.
Yeah.
Right?
A very special guest.
Yeah, it's one of those people that we've had in the past. Never guessed. I would say that. We've never had this person in the past. Typically in the Moving Iron Podcast, we've only had dealers from a major line dealer, right? So we are fortunate to have Rob Randall from Randall Brothers on the podcast here. So Rob, how you doing, man?
Good. How are you guys doing?
Man,
Good.
It's great. It's really great. So Rob, man, appreciate you taking the time to come on the podcast. Big fan of what you guys are doing over there. I think you have a unique business model when it comes to your approach. You buy a lot of used equipment, you sell a lot of used equipment, but you also have some short lines that kind of play in that. So talk a little bit about Randall Brothers, what that is, what your kind of thought process is, and how you ended up to where you're at today.
Well, we basically just deal strictly in used equipment. I mean, we've never dealt in new equipment. We do sell a few short lines like you spoke about, but no, just strictly used. Dad started back in mid '70s. He began out, selling dual wheels, rims, and tires, and so on and so forth. But back in the '70s, there was lots of different options you went for that, and that's how he got started. And it just kind of slowly grew. And in the late '90s and early 2000s, my oldest brother Ryan and my middle brother Scott, they got out of we all got out of high school, and we all wanted to. Sorry, somebody's beeping in here. We all wanted to farm. We all loved to trade. We all loved equipment, and we all stayed home on the farm and just kind of took off from there, and never really even thought about doing anything else. It's the only thing we know how to do. So
Right.
we're not capable to go do anything else.
Right.
I completely understand that sentiment, buddy.
Yeah. But no, like I said, we just strictly deal in used. We try to acquire it anywhere we can. We, obviously try to have relationships with dealers, buy excess inventory, which there's not a whole lot of that these days. In the past, it's been a lot different, but excess inventory or trade-ins that they don't want to inventory or don't want to put on their lot, or auctions, or farmers selling out, or just anywhere we can possibly find it, and get it back in here and just try to sell it for a profit and try to make a little on a lot and move forward.
Right on.
Exactly.
And you guys farm quite a little too, right, Rob?
Oh, we farm. I mean, I guess it depends what you call a lot, but there's four of us, so when you divide it up, it's not near what everybody thinks it is. So
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So kind of the primary focus of this portion of the podcast is it's called Boots on the Ground, and the idea of the Boots on the Ground segment is we're going out to people that are out working every day, trying to figure out how this whole thing works.
You are now about to witness the strength of street knowledge.
So this is the cool part about this podcast, man. So this is when we sit down and talk about what's happening in the marketplace, right? This is things that people don't see happening. And you brought up what I want to talk to you about right now, Rob. So if you look at a guy like you, where you're at, and how your operation is working, auctions is a key part of the used equipment business. As you take a look what's happening right now in the auction market, talk to me a little bit about what you see happening and what you're kind of, what's the best way to put it? Your opinion of what's going on out there.
Well, it's very wild. It's crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, you see things happening that you've never seen before. And I mean, obviously when I talk to Dad, he's been in a lot longer than I have, and a lot of peers, a lot of people that you work with and alongside with, they say they've never seen things like this. So sure enough, obviously people our age definitely have never seen it, but the market keeps climbing. It just doesn't seem to slow down. You see one thing one week, and a week later it's even higher, and a week after that it's higher, and it's complicated to find it. It's
Yes.
complicated to buy it. It's impossible to get it bought for what you think is a good deal.
Right.
And you basically just take it home and cross your fingers and hope it works, I guess, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does make perfect sense, because if you look at a lot of the auction values right now, if you look month over month over month, what you thought was a dumb purchase last month, just because of the way things appreciated, you might have actually made 5 or 6% on it.
Right.
You know what I mean? There's a lot of movement in the market right now that is unprecedented, because it really just comes down to, especially when it comes to tractors, you have no idea what that volume is going to look like month over month.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Rob, when you look at tractors right now, like how are you approaching that right now? I mean, how are you going out and having that conversation with either people you're buying stuff from or people you're selling stuff to?
Especially like 8Rs or
Right.
late model Magnums.
Right.
Oh, it's very tough. I mean, I think everybody in the country is needing late model, big horsepower tractors right now, and they just can't get their hands on them. And
Right.
I mean, a lot of people, some people you can't even get them to price them to you. I mean, I've had a couple situations where I've tried to buy them and I've offered to buy them for what they're asking for them, and they don't want to sell them.
Right.
It seems odd, but it's their tractor. I mean, they have the right to do with whatever they want to. But my personal opinion, and I'm sure not saying this is the gospel by any means, but I personally don't foresee it to change anytime in the near future. I mean, even if things do start loosening up and some of the news does start, getting shipped out and whatnot, it still takes a process to get it to the customer and get the trade in and process the trade in. And I mean, to say this is something that's going to turn around in a day or a week or even a month or even 3 months, I mean, it's not going to be like flipping a switch. It's going to be a slow process.
No, and that's exactly right. And one thing, like you were saying, Rob, with if they'll even sell it, and if the number is even close to making any sense, then you still got the availability thing, right? Which you and I personally discussed a couple days ago. Right. It's just one thing after another, and that is doing nothing but propping up the unrealistic world we're in.
Yeah, it's very complicated, and it's kind of sad to sit and to be in the situation, because you don't want anybody that you work with to be upset about something, but it seems like with things the way they are, whenever there's a hiccup or a delay, which we've run into lots of delays here lately, it seems like everybody's pointing a finger at one another, but it's something that's out of all of our control, that,
right.
The supply chain's jammed up, and the supply's low, the demand's high, and it's very complicated.
Exactly. Yeah. And in the wholesale business directly, it's typically a 30-minute process, right? I got this. We'll take it. Here's the PO. We sent a wire. Truck will be there next week. Great. And that world doesn't exist right now.
No, not right now. I mean, it just gets jammed up for everybody, because, if you make a deal, you want it. It's not doing you any good until you get it in your possession to try to get it resold. And
right.
There's really no point in even trying to resell it, because you really don't know when you're going to get your hands on it.
Right. Yep, exactly.
Yep. I think,
that's nobody's fault. That's just the world we live in, and you just kind of have to work with it and work around it and deal with it. And, it kind of just feels like you can be in a vice everywhere you turn around. And then on top of all of this, you take the cost of what some of this freight is costing. It's just, it's wild.
Yep. When you look at, what's the best way to put this? When you take a look at what's going on out there in the marketplace, and you're looking at availability from from the used perspective, because whether you're a guy like you that deals primarily in used equipment, or you're a guy like where we're on our end, where we're working for an actual dealership, when you sit back and take a look at that, how are you having that conversation with your customer when what was supposed to be there in May doesn't show up till August?
All you can do is just be straightforward and tell them the situation. And I guess you can be upset and move on, and not have it yet, or you can be real upset and still not have it. But there's nothing you can do.
Right. Yeah, exactly right.
We were waiting on some new piece of equipment to come in. We were told it was supposed to be here in February. Well, then it was April, and then it was May, and then I got a call last week and said they're missing such and such part, and we don't really know when we're going to get it. Well, we had to make phone calls and tell everybody, and you listen to it and try to smooth everything over as good as you can. But like I said, it gets back to that point of it makes everybody want to point fingers at everybody that really can't do anything about it.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. Everybody's pointing downhill, and it all leads to that same container that hasn't shown up.
Right. Exactly.
Right.
Yeah, that's exactly right. When you are, so I guess as you sit back and look at the overall perspective of this whole, I mean, like you said, your dad's been doing this since the 70s. Look at 76 through like 79. There's got to be some pretty cool conversations that come from that. I would imagine that some of those conversations have to mirror kind of what we're seeing now.
Yeah, I mean, there's times, and Dad talks about them too, and it's kind of hard. It's a little hard for me to kind of wrap my head around it, just because you weren't there. But
right,
he always talks about history repeating itself. But I don't ever recall a story being quite as bad as the situation. And I don't want to say bad, but as far as rapid inflation is,
right,
quite as drastic as what we're in right now. And things change, and dollar figures, and when you talk about rapid inflation and talk about how a tractor went from 25,000 to 32 or 34,000, and now you just kind of shake it off like it doesn't mean a whole lot, because dollar figures are so large with some of this equipment today. It's mind-boggling.
Exactly. Some of that stuff, if you look at it from percentage, you're like, what in the hell? But at dollars, you're like, oh, whatever, we'll just roll it into this other.
Oh, yeah. And
oh, man.
It just seems so much like in the last year and a half, we just kind of went from, looking at a good used later model tractor. Oh, yeah, it costs $200 or a little over. Well, now it's just like we made this giant leap here in the last year and a half.
Exactly. Right. Now there's tractors out there that are $275 wholesale, and they're a smoking deal.
Yeah, it's a crazy spot right now to be in. If you take a look at what's happening out there and all those things, the customers that you work with right now, Rob, when you're talking to them, what are they talking to you about interest rates? I mean, because we're seeing some, we're up there in that 4 to, depending on what you are, 4 to 4.5, maybe even 5% sometimes on some of these. And you start talking about the dollars that are associated with this. We don't have 18% interest rates like we did in 1980, but if you do the math on what 18% was on in 1980, and you do what 5% is on in 2022, it's about the same number of dollars. So I guess it's
18% on $100,000 or 5% on $500,000.
Right. Yeah. So it kind of starts to work itself out a little bit there. Have you seen anything there where customers are like, this interest rate, I'm gonna keep what I got because interest rates are where they're at?
I guess me personally, no, I haven't seen a lot of that lately. And I'm not saying I haven't heard any, but honestly, for the last few months here, I haven't heard a whole lot of complaining about interest rates creeping up. And I mean, in all honesty, if you're truthful with yourself, we knew they were going to creep up a little bit. I mean, they kind of had to. That it's not possible to get much lower than they were.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I interest is going to go up some. I kind of think it has to, but to say that it's going to skyrocket and get way back up there where you're talking 18%, I mean, I don't see. I don't want to say never. I'd never say never, but man, if that happens, I think everything would collapse. I mean, there's just no way to work.
Yeah, it's an absolute. Could you imagine having an 18% interest rate on a $350,000 or $400,000?
Oh my God!
Piece of equipment.
Oh yeah,
that'd be crazy.
It's called farm sale.
There's no way it would work. Absolutely not.
Yeah, it's looking back on what we see happening out there right now. What are some of the things that you're doing different now than you were doing this time last year? Because I mean, not much has changed between this year and last year. It's just, I don't know how to put that.
Well,
I mean, it is, but it isn't.
A little bit.
I mean,
last year at this time was the very start of the holy shit, there's nothing left.
Mm-hmm. True, yeah.
But you still had a little bit of time to scramble.
Right.
And now we're at Desperation City capital.
Right.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that. I mean, just from our standpoint with what we do and how we operate, I would say you devote a lot more time to trying to acquire it and trying to get the product bought which,
right.
Before when everything was, in abundance, and I don't want to say easy to get because it's never super easy to get, but you just wouldn't have to run as hard and deal with quite as many people to try to get it acquired. You could, be a few places and do this and that and have your basket filled and then turn around and work at trying to sell it. Well, now it just seems like you devote so much time to trying to get it bought. And at the end of the day, everybody's needing inventory. Everybody's wanting inventory, and the inventory's short, and it just absolutely drives the price through the roof.
Right. Yep.
Let's talk about combines for a minute. So, I mean, combines are one of those things that love them or hate them, mostly hate them. I mean,
typically.
I mean,
except in October.
It's the one thing that's out there right now that it has a big difference in the way that we do. I've tried to explain to people that combines are the catalyst of the entire used equipment marketplace, right? Whatever combines are doing, tractors are not. This is not something that is going to have it's one of those things that's going to have an absolute effect on the way the market responds, right? So as you're looking at combines right now, my thought process is the difference between now and, say, 2012 or 2011 or any of those times, that whole time frame is that we were selling into a big pile of used equipment. Right now, we're selling into a big pile of nothing, right? There's nothing there, right? As you look at combines, what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts around that marketplace?
I don't know how to answer that. I mean, my personal opinion, I do think the combine market will strengthen between now and harvest. But again, it's kind of a lot like the rest of this equipment. Yet farm equipment in general has we've had inflation. Everything's gotten higher. On the other hand, though, the things that have gotten really, really high is, your late model, high horsepower, tractors.
Right.
That mediocre tractor, yeah, it's worth a little bit more, but it's not going to bring, there's just not a huge demand for it. So, you take your later model, lower hour, nice combines. Yeah, I look for them to really strengthen, but you'll always have that middle of the road that'll just kind of lag behind. And a lot of times that seems to be where a major glut can become in the market, to where they're everywhere you see.
Exactly.
And I don't want to say they're everywhere you see at this point in time, because everything's somewhat short, but to see the gap and the spread in some of these combines, it can be a little puzzling to me that, some of your lower hour combines will bring what they do, but then you can look at one that hangs in that, 17 to 2,200 hours separator range that'll bring as much less as it does. But, even if you went and put a pile of money in it, you still got a fairly cheap combine with a whole bunch of new parts in it.
Exactly.
So, and it's hard to tell where the market will go, and obviously a lot of it depends on what this grain market does too. So.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep. That is what everything plays off of. So.
Yeah, but I guess to go back to your question, yeah, I think that the nice low hour later model machines, yeah, I look for them to strengthen, probably more so than what some of your middle of the road combines will, in my opinion.
So you're not saying like 2013 S670s are worth $180,000 or anything like that?
It has to be the right one.
Exactly. The one that's in the pavilion.
Yeah.
But to Casey's point,
this market the way it is, never say never, because you could look like a fool in a hurry.
Yeah, that's exactly right. But to Casey's point, the just sheer existence of combines, even back to I remember when there was the big lease programs on 9600s in the 90s, when I was in high school. everybody and their dog had a 9600 because you could lease it for a penny, and then all of a sudden they show up and they're worth a nickel. Just like the 12 and 13 S's, same thing. So it is kind of funny that combines fuel, at least I think Casey's spot on with that. Combines fuel so much of the wholesale side of the business.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah. It's the thing about combines is the early indicator as to what's happening in the market, right?
Right. They are the first damn thing to fall out of bed.
Because the funny thing about that, you go do a history lesson here real quick. If you go back and look at 2011 and 2012, I was putting 4 combines a month on auction. Mm-hmm. And that was the pinnacle of selling used equipment.
And I was told, dump every damn one you can and don't go home until they're all gone.
Right. I mean, so I think that precedent has been there. I mean, I haven't been doing this for as long as a lot of people have been.
And you know what the saddest part of that is? And this is hilarious, Rob. To think back then, all of the 300 SEP hour 2011 9770s, 9870s we had, we should have put the sons of bitches in a shed.
Right. Yeah.
And then sold them this year.
Kept them
We
for
would've
20
made
years
money.
and sold them, yeah.
Put them on blocks, man.
Yep. Yeah, that's
absolutely.
no doubt about that. And that's when the one thing about the combine marketplace I think people forget when you really step back and take a look at it is, yes, there's 2 things on a farm you need. And it doesn't matter what you farm.
Sun and rain.
Well, sun and rain.
A planter and a combine.
Planter and something to harvest. Whatever that is, right? If you're harvesting cabbage, you don't want a combine. That'd be a whole thing.
Well, it depends on what concaves.
You'd be making coleslaw. A lot of coleslaw coming out of that thing. But whatever that looks like. So it is so... It is the difference between those 2 marketplaces have always intrigued me a little bit, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the planter marketplace, nobody jumps up and down and screams about how bad the planter market is.
Till it is awful.
Until it's awful.
Awful.
Let there be
we're
2
past
combines.
bitching, guys.
Let 2 combines show up on your lot. Holy shit, we got a combine problem.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's the one thing that I've not ever been able to understand and wrap my head around.
Now explain this part though. Okay. And Rob, you can help with this because you guys do a hell of a lot of exporting. The 24-row planter problem. The 10s through 14s that all got dumped from 14 through 16, and the more attachments you had on there, the more you allowed for them and the more money you lost on an auction.
Yeah.
Versus combines that, let's be honest, combines aren't that bright right now. They're just bringing what the hell they're advertised at. It's not like they're a runaway. They're just finally bringing maybe what they should instead of, ooh, even that 1-year-old it's hard to trade for because we're going to be wrong, So the auction killed that planter glut. It killed it. It got rid of it. It disappeared. Start over. There still is a good 24-row planter shortage. Even average planters, there is a shortage to some point for the CCS, Seed Star, the good planter.
Right. The desirable one.
Right. We have never hit that with combines. They're just always a problem until last October.
Right.
Now they're not a problem. They're just not one of the brightest spots of the ridiculous market we're in. So do you think there would be any way, because think about it, all the hundreds of combines I've sold you guys over the years, plus what we've thrown on auction, what you guys, combine auctions was just puke city from 10 to 20. And the amount of combines exported versus planters, they don't get 24-row planters aren't that big of an export item like combines. So, and each farm, your average farm has one of each. So why do you think, from your other side of the moon perspective, why'd the planter thing fix itself, but combines never have?
Well, I don't really have a great answer for you, I guess, Aaron, because we don't deal in tons of planters. We deal in a few. So we are not super versed on the planter market.
Gotcha.
The combine market, I don't know what to say, honestly. You're exactly right when you say there's never been a real shortage, because it doesn't seem like there ever is a real shortage. You know? There gets to be a glut of them, and they get, obviously when there's a glut, they're harder to move and they're harder to sell, and they don't bring as much money. And until here recently, we've never ever ran into that. Now, like you talked about last October, yeah, there came a point in time there it was tougher to get them, and there just wasn't near as many of them out there.
Right.
Yeah.
And that was like a 3-month blink, and holy shit.
Right.
It was quick.
Yeah. I think
now, obviously, here the export market, it's definitely taken a little bit of a hit and a little bit of a bump in the road with the whole Russian-Ukraine deal going on. I mean, that I do feel that is going to affect a certain range of combines over the next few months here.
Right.
Quite a bit.
Yeah. That is something that the planter combine scenario that you just talked about, I've thought about that a lot.
Right.
And it's never made sense to me, because there's two things that we sell that are niche things, right?
Right.
Two things from a large ag perspective, right? One of them is, and all you can do with it is you can plant with a planter, and then you can chop with a chopper.
Right.
Right. Now, you can make that same argument with a combine that you can only harvest, right?
A drill.
Right. Yeah, but I mean, that's a whole different level. Like you can drill alfalfa. You can
air seed corn if you want.
You can do a lot of different things that you're doing with that. I mean, you can a million different things. I think for me, I've thought about that a lot.
I do have the answer.
All right, let me hear it.
I've thought about this a lot too.
Okay.
And I've told you this, and this is just my opinion. Nobody walks into any dealership and buys 12 planters. There's a lot of outfits that walk into dealerships and buy 12 combines.
That's true. That's true.
And that's where the problem lies. Because there's very rarely a problem with your 250 to 300 sep-hour combine. It's the 1-year-old 6+.
What's the 250s run out?
Well, right.
Right. Up until then, everybody hates them.
The only time I've ever lived in that world was the end of last year.
Right.
Do you have any 300-hour combines? No, but I have 600. Okay, right. That'll work.
My thought process is that when you look at a planter, to your point, you're exactly right. There's not a guy that starts in Wichita Falls, Texas, and makes his way to, Three Rivers, Wisconsin.
Right. Pulls into Minot to plant beets.
I mean, there's nobody doing that, right?
Right.
Now, that being said,
that'd be cool.
But you got to think about that, though. Every single farm in North America has a planter on it.
Right. And a lot of those guys don't have, well, I shouldn't say a lot. That's why harvesters exist, because that guy doesn't have a combine.
Right. So whether it's an air seeder or a planter or a drill or whatever it is, whatever you're using to plant whatever crop it is that you have.
It's there at the farm.
Every single farm has one of those.
Right.
Every single solitary farm.
I have a drill.
Right.
I have no acres.
I don't want to say every single solitary farm has that, because that's not true. But
most
99.97% have that there, right? So when you're looking at that perspective and you're going through that whole concept of what that looks like, you have not every farm has a combine on it, right? Now, they might have an 8820,
Right.
they might have a S790, right? But there's a lot of guys
They
that
might
plant.
have an X9 1100
there's operations
and an
that I know of.
Ideal and an 8800 Klaus and a 9250 Retro Edition.
There is a number of I can think of operations that have 10,000 acres of wheat that don't
Right.
have a combine,
Right.
right?
Exactly.
But they've got an air seeder.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I
They
mean?
have 3.
So why is it that combines have this the stigma about them? You know, you'd think they'd have it. I mean, you think planters would have that same stigma.
I personally, I give them the most stigma, but I love and adore them because without them, I don't have a job. So
I mean, so Rob, think about this for a second. So if you're coming back in and thinking about the whole 2012 combine fiasco that we had, or planter fiasco that we saw,
Right.
2011.
you're all right too. Combine fiasco too.
Well, that's true. But 2011 through 2013, be ahead of 2014 of that giant purge that we had,
Yep.
there were more combines on the marketplace than there were planters.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, by quite a bit.
By
I'd
quite a
say.
bit.
Right.
Quite a bit. Now, the planter was the pariah for whatever reason of that marketplace. Now,
It's because it was weird. Combine problems existed.
you had a 3-year run where people were taking their 1-year-old planter with 5,700 acres on it and traded it in on a brand new one. And we got the shadow tracker, we got the we got the blah. And next thing you know, at the time, a $250,000 planter was a big deal.
Right.
Today, that's like, do you want any fertilizer on that?
Does that thing need rebuilt?
I mean, you want row units on? Do you need actual row units on this? You just want the bar? I mean, that's where we're at now.
well,
So-
we had that 37 price increase in 20, so
Right. I mean, so Rob, as you take a look back at that's my thing with combines. It's like combines have never been any more of a problem than planters have been.
no, but the world is numb to it. That's the difference. When there was a planter problem, it was out of nowhere. There was
Well-
never a problem before.
Right.
All of a sudden there was, and it was all the same planter.
Well, that's true.
It was
That's
all
true.
these
Yeah.
24 rows. 12 rows you could sell, 16s you could sell, DB90s you could sell.
Right.
17, 70, 24 rows were just puke city. Then the 2150s joined them. And it became this whole giant mess. Everybody's used to the combine mess from the John Deere 12A pull type and the Massey Harris 21A.
Right.
From that day forward, combines were a problem.
Yep. So I guess we purged 2014 to 2016. We purged every combine there was, or every planter there was on the marketplace.
Right.
You remember that, Rob? I remember meeting you the first time at Sinclair's auction in 2016, 17?
17.
2017. Yeah. And they were selling, I mean, they had a whole line of combines sold up, and they had like three planters. Right?
Yeah.
Right.
So, I mean, as you take a look at that, I mean, to me, I've never understood that. I've never understood why there is why planters have had this complete disconnect when it comes to the I'm saying like the whole
Probably
used
in the
equipment
wiring
marketplace.
harness, usually.
That's usually where it's at.
It's in poles.
It's not the
and
canvas.
harness.
It's not the canvas issue. It's a whole other deal. But I guess, Rob, as you look at that, I mean, and you take a look at that combine marketplace, people are they can't wait to sell a combine at auction. But I mean, obviously, planters are going to be a totally different thing right now than they were that many years ago, right? So I guess as you look at the planter marketplace, what's your thoughts there, and what are you doing different now than you were? I mean, there's just not that many to have out there. I guess what are your thoughts there?
you don't get near the backup or the glut with planters because in my opinion, speaking, just a general statement is your planter today can plant so much so fast that they don't need to go buy 12 of them. They buy
Right.
maybe 2 of them.
Yeah,
But
sure.
they,
Yeah.
you know, if you go buy 2 high-speed planters today, that thing will plant what you need 8 combines to harvest.
Exactly.
Yeah,
That's exactly
right. And you're exactly right. They don't make a high-speed 780.
And, a combine probably gets such a bad rap because, first off, you give a lot of money for it, and it's a constant money pit every year.
Right.
And
you use it a few weeks.
But that's the thing about a planter, too, though. It's not like a planter's not a money pit either.
Oh, they are.
I mean, you start looking at, everyone thinks about, planter, this, that, and that thing. It's like, I spend $500 a row times 24.
Right.
You know what I mean? You spent $12,000 on a planter. You know what I mean?
But the thing is, with a planter, which that was the first thing we were taught in class, machinery class. Anyway.
When did you take that class? I would love to take that class
In college. You would have hated it. Yeah. It was way too tractor geek for you. It wasn't enough about the markets and whatnot. But that was the biggest thing is everybody wants the big shiny, which back then was 9610, excuse me. Everybody wanted the brand new 9610, We got to have a 9610. And they had a 7100 that the row units might have 3 foot of play each way.
Right.
But, it put the corn in the ground. Right. We just got to have that shiny combine and get it out.
Yeah.
And a lot of guys to this damn day still think that way. Now it's drastically changing because God knows there is no end at all ever to the amount of frickin' planter attachments out there. No end.
Yeah.
You could have a podcast about planter attachments. There's probably 8 of them. And they have no repeats.
Right. And they're worthless to everybody except for the guy that wants it.
Exactly.
Right.
Because the next guy doesn't want that. He wants something different that looks the same, but it's his idea.
Right.
But with a lot of guys will push that planter way further than they should. But when they're in that combine seat, no, I'm not getting out. It's got to run.
Mm-hmm.
I know tons of guys who will fix every damn thing on a combine every year, but run a planter until it's barely planting. Which would totally contradict the whole we hate planters for that little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And they're never a problem before or after, but combines always are.
To me, as important as planters are on the farm,
right?
I really think they're the most neglected thing out there.
Yeah.
What do you think of that, Rob?
Oh, I would agree with you. I do agree with you. I think it's gotten probably a little bit less over these past few years. I mean, it seems like here over the last few years, planters have just, it's totally changed. You got to have this, you got to have that. You just,
right.
You can't go anymore with a finger pickup and spring down pressure. It just won't grow anymore.
Right, exactly.
Have the biggest, fanciest, most fabulous planter out there, and I'm not saying that's right or wrong. I mean, it's everybody's own personal choice, but I would agree with you 100%, but just not maybe quite as much today as it was a few years back.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Good point.
So, Rob, from a use perspective, and as you start taking a look at all of the different aspects of technology and how that's playing in there, what are your customers telling you that you're working with about how, the kind of technology that they're looking for, or specs for that matter, on some of this newer stuff?
Oh, it all depends who you get. There's some guys that want the latest and greatest, and it's all about technology. But there's also groups of guys who they don't want nothing to do with that, and nobody's right or wrong. I mean, that's why you have new markets and used markets and so on and so forth. But, you still have that guy who wants an 8410 and wants a finger pickup and spring down pressure and just simple and don't need all that stuff and just wants to farm simple,
My favorite guys.
Yeah, I mean, and you can believe it or not, you probably think that we're completely insane, but that's what our corn planter is. It's simple, and
exactly. It also doesn't fail you.
And when we sell the tractor that's on the planter, you pop the hydraulics out, you pull the 350 monitor out, and you switch it, and you go.
Exactly. There you go. Amen.
But again, that's just us speaking. I mean, I'm sure we're probably the oddball in that situation. So,
Well,
but with some of this equipment, another thing is it's so high tech and it's so complicated. You go out and you plant that corn for 2, 3, 4 weeks in the spring, and it goes back in the barn, and the next year comes around and they just completely forget how to run it.
Right.
I'm guilty of. It's a lot different world than what we used to live in.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, I got the 34 sprocket and the 38 sprocket. Set her down. Drive forward. Let's go. That's
right.
it.
You get a lot of people come around, want to help on the farm and do this and do that, and God love them, but that day don't exist anymore. This stuff is way complicated.
Yeah, big time.
No doubt about it. Well, Rob, I think that's a good place to stop here for this podcast, man. If folks want to reach out to you and talk about what you got going on there at Randall Brothers, what's the best way to do that?
You can call anytime or you can email, either one. Visit the website. We keep the inventory pretty well up to date. Most try to anyhow, but it's always changing.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, anything we can do to help. Appreciate you having me on, and stay in touch in the future.
Yeah.
And for my own interest, they're big into muscle tractors too, so they always got a lot of cool old shit.
What's your website, Rob?
www.randallbros.biz. B-I-Z.
Right on. And what's the phone number to call?
419-395-1764.
Right on, man. I hope to see you in Nashville at the Moving Iron Summit, man.
Yeah, definitely. Looking forward to it.
Right on, man. So I'm Casey Seymour with Moving Iron Podcast. Make sure you check me out on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Also go to MovingIronLLC.com to get all the information for the Moving Iron Summit coming up here in Nashville, Tennessee, September 6th, 7th, and 8th. You want to meet Rob? Check him out, man. He'll be there. And Aaron, you'll be there. So what's the best way to get hold of you?
Usually Carrier Pigeon or Pony Express, given where we live.
Right.
Pretty active on the ag Twitter at Aaron Fintel. Mm-hmm. Also on Facebook, and call or text me. Text preferred 308-760-1193.
You can call me at 308-765-0495. Email me at MovingIronPodcast@MovingIronPodcast.com. If you have a question for myself, Aaron, Sean Hackett, Chip Nellinger, whoever it might be, send it to me, and we will ask that question on the air for whomever that you send it for, and we'll make sure that comes across. But with that, I want to say, Rob, hey, really appreciate you being on the podcast, man.
Yeah, no, appreciate you having me. You guys have a good evening, and take care.
All right, right on. So with that, I'm Casey Seymour with Aaron Fennell and Rob Randall. Let's go with some iron, folks. Out. Axon Tire is going to have more tips, tricks, and client advice throughout the year, and in September at the Moving Iron Summit in Nashville. If you're looking to sign up for the event, please head over to MovingIronLLC.com. We hope to see you there. Valley Transportation has been hauling ag and construction equipment across the country for the past 33 years. Call Parker at 800-657-4910 or go to valleytransitinc.com for all of your trucking needs. At Valley Transportation, our goal is to help you reach yours. And no matter how you buy ag equipment from a dealer, auction, or a private party, AgDirect can help you finance it. You can even apply online at agdirect.com. Learn more about your financing options at agdirect.com.
Moving higher in the 21st century. Hard-working people working hard for you and me. Moving higher, time and time again. Through the years you'll find us here.